Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Mason J Show. This is Mason, your host. Today on the episode we have Christopher Attardi. This is Chris's second appearance on The Mason J Show. You can find his first appearance on episode 15, which is in the Spotify, Apple Music, Anchor catalog of episodes. That one is not available on YouTube, but this episode will be available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, video and audio. You know the gist by now if you have been listening along. Chris and I have a very interesting conversation today about Chris's previous entrepreneurial ventures. I think you'll see very quickly how articulate and intelligent Chris is, and very well spoken, and just an interesting guy to hear about his life, which is why I wanted to have him on, and which is why I'm excited for you guys to check out the episode. We're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, and then we will be listening. Hey guys, going to take a quick break from the episode just to highlight a sponsor of this season of The Mason J Show, and today we have Spencer Banger, a loan officer with Fidelity Direct Mortgage, here to offer the listeners of my podcast some free knowledge and education on the home buying process, and hopefully to be your loan officer when it comes to your new home purchase or refinance of the current home you have. Spencer has been in the mortgage industry for over 8 years and run through the home buying process thousands and thousands of times, and that means that he is an absolute expert and will catch the little details that turn into big problems down the road. Spencer is offering a free consultation to any of my listeners to go over your credit and your home buying eligibility to see if you qualify for the home or refinance that you're looking for. All you have to do is send an email to spencer@fdmhome.com, reference the podcast, and that you're there for your consultation. Spencer is somebody that I absolutely trust because I've seen him work firsthand, and I wouldn't put a sponsor on the episode if it wasn't somebody or something that I think would really help you guys out. And I actually mean that. Thank you guys so much. Back to the episode. Spencer's NMLS ID is 1202142, and Fidelity Direct Mortgage's number is 188829. Thanks, guys. Chris, welcome to the podcast, man.
Mason, thank you for having me back, brother.
I'm so excited. I don't know when this episode is going to air, but this is officially the first time that we've recorded with video, which is very exciting. And technically the first time I've had an episode in person.
Right on.
All the other ones have been over Zoom, so it feels kind of surreal. Things are coming together.
Evolution at its finest.
Yeah, really. So you were on the podcast before, and I feel like it was necessary to have you back on again because while the story that you gave was fantastic, we didn't have video feed, when we did it, and it was kind of just like a phone call. So I wanted to get you back on, especially since you were really the only episode I did without any video, or at least so we could see each other.
Right
so
on.
Get you back on. First official episode with the video.
Well, Governor, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me back. Cheers to that, mate.
Cheers. Thank you, friends, for watching.
Thanks for tuning in, team.
Mm-hmm. So the last episode we had with you was a lot of kind of some past relationship issues that you had and went through, and this one I wanted to focus a little bit more on some of the business ventures and other things that you've been able to either work through and kind of just figure out for yourself. You mentioned back on the podcast before that you had a venture going with some sports ticket sales.
Yeah, for sure. So all that other stuff is basically just to show like obstacles happen to everybody. But it taught me basically one day just to figure out, after taking a step back, what I love to do. Mm-hmm. I love to sell stuff, and I love sports. So I was like, how can I solve a world problem by incorporating those two things together? So after a couple days of writing business plan after business plan in a notebook with a pencil, I came up with a company that I decided to call Aspirations to Save the World, because I was like, I'm aspiring to save the world.
Right, that was the whole title, Aspirations to Save the World.
Yeah,
nice.
A2STW for short. Mm-hmm. You soon learn in business that you need much shorter names for websites.
Alphabet
for
companies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So live and you learn.
Uh-huh.
But basically what that was, the world problem I decided to solve was ending starvation.
Mm-hmm.
It was like at the time there was 7.53 billion people in the world, close to what it is today. And there was just over millions and millions and millions of people that go to sporting events and musical concerts, and then you don't even think of like PGA and NASCAR. So in my mind, I was like, if I could just captivate 1% of that, even half of a percent of that, I was like, we could save a lot of people. So I decided to basically Shawshank Redemption it, and I reached out to the front. I had to go online for every single team in every single sport. So I quickly learned the amount of teams in the NFL, the amount of teams in the NBA, the amount of teams in the NHL, the MLS, and so on. And then I also had to research how many people at maximum capacity each stadium for each team could hold. I had to make spreadsheets and do all this stuff. And you quickly learn when you have a vision like that a lot of the people closest to you just think you're absolutely crazy. It's a waste of time.
That's a big venture.
Of course.
That's a lot to take on. Was this you by yourself trying to put this together?
I mean, I tried to get as many people as I could involved, but nobody was really having it. People would be like, oh, yeah, it's a good idea. And then the people closest to me would be like, dude, you're fucking stupid. That's not going to work.
Because let me reiterate again. So you said that it would be like a percentage of each, almost like a tax on the sale of each ticket would go towards, say it one more time?
So basically, you're right. But essentially, Ticketmaster charges a ridiculous amount of money for handling fees. So I figured if I could have a product that was better than the competitions for a price that was cheaper than the competitions at a cause that was greater than the competitions, we would be able to corner the market.
Right.
So the handling fee was cheaper than what Ticketmaster's was, and a majority of the portion of that handling fee went back to purchasing cans of food, because they're imperishables, from local small businesses, not corporations like Walmart, so that we could sustain local small businesses on a macro scale within this country. So basically, like, whatever city and team you support, if you go to a game, your ticket would buy a meal of food that would then get donated to a local charity in the team's name. In that city, yes,
That's awesome.
but in that team's name. So it looked like the team was giving back to the community through my business. The people going to see the teams was giving back to the community in my business. And then a small portion of that handling fee would get funneled into a bank account. So when the season closed, it would then get donated to a Teacher of the Year award. So the kids around the country would vote on their favorite teacher throughout the season of the MLB or the MLS.
Right.
And we'd be able to then give those teachers a bonus.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic venture that really makes a lot of sense for the, it's simply the city giving back to the people that are actually living there, and what a better way for sports to be an avenue for that. And as many ticket sales as, like, I'm from Baltimore, like the Ravens Stadium is massive.
Exactly.
So as many tickets as the Ravens sell, and even the Orioles too, even if $1 went to food banks in the community, that would be a ton of money. That would really self-generate and
that's what Walmart and McDonald's
feed the entire city.
Exactly. And then if you also think about it too, the beautiful thing about that business model is that it's sustainable, because the entertainment industry is going to be among us for a very long time. So think about it. Then again, I did all my research just to start out with sports. That did not even include musical venues for professional people who make music. So that was just an entirely different untapped market that could tap into more millions and millions. So it was pretty crazy. After Shawshank Redemptioning nonstop to, like, the front office and the PR teams and the HR teams, to every single team I could think of. Like, I would literally send 200-300 emails a day. It got to the point where you make, like, a generic system, and then you can copy and paste the name of the person from the front office who runs human resources, and then you can send it out. And you'll get a bunch of emails back, believe it or not. It's crazy, but you learn a lot that the competition has exclusivity contracts with every organization they work with, because they're geniuses. And the teams that don't utilize, say, Ticketmaster, not to badmouth Ticketmaster or anything, they're a phenomenal business. They've been around forever, and I've been going to games through Ticketmaster and concerts through them forever.
So they have a choice not to.
Yeah, they've paved the way. But, like, in order to compete with them, you then have to buy into ticket sellers unions. So, like, the New York Mets, my favorite team of all time, got back to me, and they were like, we don't work with them right now, but you have to pay to get into this ticket sellers union. But they're not legally allowed to tell you the name of the ticket sellers union or how much the fees or the dues cost. So it's like, it was really like picking teeth with everything. So I ended up getting somehow a contract. I was standing outside the Padres Stadium in San Diego. I did it every day for like 2 months. And finally, I would ask the people, because there's always groundskeepers there. They don't have games during the day and stuff like that. And I would ask them, I was like, is there any way I could get in touch with someone in the public relations department? And finally, one guy was like, yeah, she's actually here today. And they came down. And I explained to her in like a 60-second pitch what I thought I could do for them, for the community, generate more income, obviously, with sales for tickets that they hadn't sold for that game, and basically, give back and enable them to do it with like tax write-offs at the end of the year. And she was super interested, but she only allotted me 5,000 tickets per game. and I never came close to selling that much. But in my mind, if I could get the track rolling or the ball rolling in the MLB, because they have 82 home games a year, then I could basically get all these other teams involved with it once they saw how good it was going to do.
Right.
But yeah, turns out I'm not as good of a CEO as I thought I was at the first venture.
So was it the issue of selling tickets? Because it sounds like you were able to get your foot in the door, which is fantastic. I mean, 5,000 tickets is a good start. And you could generate a lot of money for nonprofits with those tickets alone, right?
For sure.
Better than nothing.
So I had to re-register the business as I think it was called a 501c3. It's basically a B corporation. So you operate as a profitable entity that's allowed to utilize non-profitable entities as like the strategy. But you have much more responsibility to the public, and if you don't meet those responsibilities, then you have legal recourse, essentially. At least that was in California. Each state, I realized quickly that if I were to get more teams, I would have to have a legal department basically for each state. So I didn't have the capital in order to do that. So I started going to all these angel investor meetings and all these venture capital meetups where you would basically have a round robin of 60-second to 2-minute pitches against 50 other entrepreneurs in front of a board of investors. And then everybody of the investor board would vote over whose pitch they liked the best. The top 2 people would go head to head, and then the winner would get an investment from one of the investors or the venture capitalist.
Sounds very cutthroat.
It was cutthroat, but not really, because everybody was like-minded, which is really cool. So you go there. It's more of a networking event than anything, and then the winner everybody's just happy for. Because some of these things, like you get in there, and like if you pitch your idea and you hear someone else pitch, you're like, wow, they're going to win. You're like, that's incredible. Obviously, these investors are always looking for world-changing ideas, of course, but like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
So, I mean, I remember the first guy I lost to, I actually...
But your idea kind of is reinventing the wheel if you think about it. I mean, you're just reselling tickets and just adding the caveat of, oh, these also go to support the communities that are around these stadiums. And I mean, oddly, the communities that are around the baseball and the football stadiums are usually like impoverished areas. You know,
for sure.
Granted, I haven't been to a lot of them, but I know specifically in Baltimore, like the stadium is right in like smack dab center of kind of like a, you know, not the safest, not the best area to walk around in. And if the ticket sales generated from the stadium went and were reinvested in the immediate community, literally right around the stadium, just to have a little bit better safety for the people living there and food for people who couldn't support themselves, like that would be a great venture. And there's no reason that the stadiums can't accommodate that.
For sure. And that was the idea behind it. I just assumed, you know, everybody could benefit. Like I said, I was trying to solve a world problem, and somehow I was able to put the things I love together to come up with the idea. The execution wasn't there, but the idea was there. So essentially, you kind of run into wall after wall after wall after wall after wall. And I did this for 6 years. Like every day, I worked 2 full-time jobs to fund this business, 80 hours a week. I slept 3 hours a night. I worked out twice a day. I don't know how I did it. I look back now, I'm like, I'd come home from work, take my boots off, and I lay on the couch and read a book. Like, much different now. But yeah, after about 5-6 years of that, I was like, all right, it's not working. I was like, so I lost the contract after the first year with the Padres because it wasn't profitable. So there was no way of scaling it up. The ticket sales weren't there. The revenue wasn't there. Right. I was working nonstop, losing money. So as a businessman, I'm like, dude, this is stupid. You need to stop this. As a humanitarian and a visionary, I'm like, no, don't ever give up. Keep going. You need to be obsessed with this in order for it to work. But at the same time, it was taking its toll mentally. I bet. It's like I have no time for...
What was the biggest issue that you were facing there? Was it like you couldn't get... Was it a ticket sales issue? Were people not coming to your platform?
Capital. It wasn't even that. It was capital. So my platform, right off the bat, was a lot of close family and friends purchasing tickets just to help out in their cities because my network was pretty vast at the time, which was good. A lot of people that I know would just buy tickets to Padres games and they weren't even in San Diego just to help my business grow. But the thing was, in order to find a web developer to build a database that was kind of compromised or conglomerating all of these stadiums and their seating charts like you would see on Live Nation or StubHub or Ticketmaster, that was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is why I started going to the investor meetings, pitching these ideas. But if you guys watch Shark Tank at all, you'll know that without generated revenue and numbers, an idea is an idea, but that's too much of a risk for investors to put into it.
How were you selling? Like, did you have to make a software and a platform and a website to sell your tickets?
Facebook groups, YouTube. Yeah. So basically, after reaching out to a bunch of web developers, I spent $9,000 over 3 different web developers, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And got, I don't want to use the word, but like shit work. I was like, dude, I could just read a book and figure out what I want to bring my vision to fruition. So as an entrepreneur, you learn quickly. In the first stages, you have to learn how to do everything. So from marketing to finance to like social media, like I had to create a LinkedIn, I had to create an Instagram, I had to create a website, I had to create a Facebook, a YouTube channel. Then I had to go out, and all the beautiful girls that I knew at the time, they were on board with the cause. They loved it. So I had all these girls shooting for model shoots, wearing A2STW clothing, and we were passing out like QR codes for people so that they could scan stuff in the parking lots of games and offering free tequila to people tailgating. Like That's how we built a following online. A lot of the social media would be, I would basically post, hey, we've got this many tickets for this game on this date. Does anybody want any? And then tag 3 friends in the comments section for a chance to win 3 tickets to the next game. And then we'd have a winner circle on the website, and a lot of it was word of mouth. So it was really hard because at the time, again, like I wasn't a genius marketer. I was good at selling things, but learning how to invest the small capital I had to build the foundation I needed properly was something that I needed to learn. So
yeah, that's a huge venture to take on by yourself, and to have to kind of navigate your way through that. Like, yeah, the cause is noble, but if you don't
profit,
yeah, but also have the resources to just like make sure you succeed. And, not that what I'm doing here with the podcast is anything similar to like that venture, but I feel it too. Like I've had to access a ton of different resources, and, nobody else is really doing podcasts, but I'm working my way through like the business aspect of it and trying to market myself, and it's a lot to take on. And with you, that's even fucking more, having to bring in like partners from the actual sports facilities when their days are busy as shit, trying to schedule everything, and here you are just like trying to get a piece of the action, so
it's so hard too,
a ton to take on.
Being so young too made it hard because like a lot of the people I know now
were
established. This started in 2012, so I was 22. So the business plan aspect of it started in 2011. It took about a year for me to gain the traction to be able to get all the emails out, get responses back, and then move to San Diego. San Diego was 2012 when it really started.
Hit the table too much.
And it was wild, but you quickly learn too that it's all about the team. Like you can pick up the world and put it on your shoulders, but if you don't have a full solid team around you, like it's not sustainable. You need to build a team, and you have to be able to trust every one of your team members.
Right.
So I started doing that. I had a lot of close friends from the marketing firm I worked at the time working on this. It was cool. They came up with the slogan, Gracie Morgan, shout out to you. It's been a long time. But she came up with this slogan in like 2 seconds, putting fans in the stands, fighting hunger with cans. And I was like,
that's great.
That's genius.
That's great.
Amazing. And then,
that alone should keep the business afloat.
Right? It's crazy. And then those are the people who actually started getting me into these venture capital meetings. And we ended up going to these guys. This guy, Dana Robinson, I met through this guy, Aaron Sahagun. It's funny. These are people who are like so rich, they like make jokes at each other about which college they went to. Like, you didn't go to Berkeley. But it's really funny. So Dana Robinson actually ran the law program at one of the San Diego universities. And he, even though I lost the pitch in the head-to-head at the end, ended up reaching out to me and saying, hey, I want you to come down to the office. He basically helped me remodel my 501(c)(3), the B Corp, into an LLC, kind of like Tom Shoes, where basically I would sell a ticket and I would just vow to donate a can of food, as opposed to having the legal responsibilities to the world. So Tom Shoes, they sell a pair of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes. Same business model. Saved me a ton of money and a lot less stress in the starting stages. And it was really cool because instead of having to pay for attorneys, he allowed his law students to do all the research for all the stuff that I needed on the back end for free for me, which was great. And then he extended his network of individuals to me, which opened up these scotch and cigars nights in like these $1 million mansions. And like I'm showing up with the cheapest scotch in the world and like Dutch Master cigars, and these guys are smoking Cubans and Cohibas, and they have like $10,000 bottles of scotch. But it was cool because everybody just goes, and again, you would feel inferior at first, but as you meet these people, like they're just like you and I. Money doesn't really change them, and they're always saying the same thing.
Right. So who was this gentleman's name again?
So his name was Dana Robinson.
Robinson?
Dana Robinson, yeah.
Robinson. So did Dana Robinson kind of take this idea from you and kind of run with it with his students? Is that?
No. He was helping me out.
I didn't mean that in a bad way.
No, I get it. He basically put his kids to work instead of like having me go through his law firm and pay for their hourly rates. So the kids were basically working for me for free. through projects and stuff that he would have them do for class. And then he would bring back the information to me, we would analyze it, and we would implement what was proper.
Okay.
And
that sounds like a lifesaver that he was able to come in and do this. Yeah.
More so for his networking purposes too, because I met a guy, and again, it stinks because I wasn't able to execute properly on it, but I met this guy on the first Scotch and Cigars night, and he was an investment banker for Smith Barney, and he said, dude, my job is to turn $300 million a year into $700 million a year. If I don't, I lose my job. He was like, if you get a contract with 3 more teams by the end of the year, he goes, I will give you my full $300 million as venture capital, and we will grow this business together.
That's enough to make anything happen.
I thought so. Dude, I'm a hustler through and through to the brim, and it's really hard when you've never really failed in anything in life, and you put your balls to the wall, and you're sitting there going day in, day out, and you're like, the fuck is not working? Why is this not working? I fully am obsessed with this. I'm doing everything I need to do on a daily basis to make this happen. What is wrong? I was just young, that's all. So now you take a step back, you put that idea on the back burner. I did all the legwork, I did all the research, I did all the networking. I learned how to code, learned how to market. These are all life lessons that are completely valuable, because even if this business venture doesn't work out, I'm an entrepreneur, so on to the next one.
Right.
So
where is this idea now? What happened to that?
All my business plans are still on my external hard drives, everything like that. I still occasionally send emails out to front-end offices just to see, but those employees are constantly changing. The turnaround on that, and between people getting promotions or quitting. So none of the same people are still there. I basically put it on the back burner in 2016. So
now, is this potentially an idea you could package and sell to Ticketmaster?
I tried it. They shut me down.
Right, because the LLC, what if you just went to Ticketmaster? Well, but I feel like the tough thing is that they do enough business as it is they really don't need to bring in this additional thing. Would they though? The companies what was the company before that sold the shoes?
Tom Shoes.
Donated Tom. Yeah, Tom's. Yeah, there's another company too. There's a handful of them that have that same pledge where, you buy a shoe, we'll donate a shoe. You buy this, we'll donate this.
Sunglasses.
We'll plant a tree. And I think that those companies, it's not as much of, a profit, but it's more that the company itself is doing what they can and not being totally greedy and just being in it for profits. And I wonder if because there's a handful of ticket sites now that you can go to, and maybe it's different for concerts and versus sporting games, but I know Axis is one, Ticketmaster, Stubbs. I wonder if there's other companies, because they're all still community focused.
For sure.
Access, those sell all the concert tickets for the cities that we live in, and still community focused. I'm sure those could package that type of incentive to their customers.
You're right. What I learned was from Dana. He was the best you're going to get out of them, no matter how hard you try, is kind of what McDonald's or Walmart would do. Hey, would you like to donate $1 or $5 to A2STW? This is their cause at the end of their checkout process. But when you see the deterrent for the consumer, when you see all the handling fees, you see a ticket price, $25 for a ticket, and then you see $19 in handling fees, and then they ask you to donate $5. People are well, no. Even though I was donating over 90% of that $1 that came in to charitable causes. Most companies out there that are charities, the CEOs of those charities take a giant profit of those. Just any dollar that comes in, they take anywhere from 40 to 90% of it.
Right.
So that was the deterrent from the law perspective. So I went for the next thing. I reached out to Uber right after their IPO. I was tired of sending stuff to girls at the time, or my mom, and waiting 7 days for flowers. So in my head, I'm from New York. There's florists on every street corner, but there's also stores on every single street corner.
Yeah.
I was what if I don't want to send flowers? What if I want to send shoes to my girl? Or what if I want to send my mom a nice dress that I saw out? So I built a website called Lavish Same Day Delivery. And I was trying to pitch this same-day delivery service by utilizing the Uber drivers in the area to ping off of a database that we had built on the website. So basically, you could be in any city, an Uber driver in your area. If you didn't want to say you were filthy rich, say the item was over a certain amount of money. All of our drivers from Uber would have had to have been vetted if they were going to be partnering with Lavish Same Day.
Right.
Because somebody in Manhattan that works on Wall Street isn't sending flowers. They're sending a $10,000 diamond bracelet to their girl. But they should be able to do that in a same-day, next-day delivery form outside of just flowers. So I pitched that to Uber. Very quickly, I got a response, hey, we're not going to go that route. We're going to go a different route. I was told that they were going to start delivering pharmaceuticals to the elderly. I haven't seen that. Haven't seen that at all.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing food.
Yeah,
you know.
and now I see same day delivery everywhere. So I'm like, okay, I was just ahead of my time.
But wouldn't Amazon be a big competitor for that?
At the time, I didn't even really know about Amazon, which is kind of crazy.
Well, was this still around 2012?
Probably like 2016, 2017.
Yeah, they definitely weren't doing 2-day delivery at that time.
I was still on Alibaba at the time.
Right, right.
That was my thing.
Yeah, because you pitch that idea nowadays, they're like, oh, I'll just order it a day ahead and it'll be there tomorrow.
Amazon has fulfillment centers. Like I could go on today, like at work for my job that I currently have. I order things on Amazon, it comes 4 hours later. Mm-hmm. So it's incredible how fast that has evolved over the course of the last 6 years, because it was non-existent.
Well, that blows my mind. To like, I'll be at work and I need something, like even these lights I just got for the set. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, yeah, I need some lights. It's like what, 1 p.m. and I'm just like, oh, it'll be here today.
As long as you get the order before 3, most companies.
What? It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense.
It's mind-boggling. So again, after trying that for about 8 months, reaching out to a bunch of different companies outside of Uber, and then trying to market it myself, and again start venture capital. Again, I was running into obstacles. It was always money that was my obstacle. Mm-hmm. And like after growing up and trying to do things the legit way, the right way, you could never find like an illegitimate side hustle in order to fund it. So it's part of growing up. So then I went on to this is the funny thing, like I used to live next to a train station, and as kids, my brother and sister and I used to go out at like 4:30 in the morning. We would sell coffee to all the people that were getting on the train in the morning, and then we'd go to school or practice, whatever we had. And then at night after practice, we'd come home, and people would be getting off the train at 6, 7 o'clock, and we're selling lemonade and iced tea. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the basics. That shit always worked as a kid. I know I'm older now. It's kind of weird, but dude, people love coffee in the morning. So like, I remember I was making good money just selling coffee in the morning. But
at the train station?
Yeah, but you don't pay taxes on it. So like, you still don't feel like a real businessman. You're like, this is a side hustle.
I don't know about that. I feel like if you're making good money, you don't necessarily have to pay taxes on it. If it's like that selling coffee, like I guess to feel like a businessman, right?
Yeah, it was more for me like the internal feeling. I was like, this isn't where I want to be. I'm still not there.
Right. Okay, I get what you mean. Like the credibility, the officialness of it.
Exactly. I was working as a waiter at 2 different restaurants, Planet Fitness overnight when the restaurant, because the second restaurant would get out at 10 p.m. Mm-hmm. So then I go work at Planet Fitness from 10 to 6 a.m. I would sleep and then work another job as a waiter and then go to the next job. So I'm sitting there after selling coffee in the morning, and I'm like, okay, well, I just slept for about an hour and a half. I got to figure something out. This isn't working. This is just like, I'm still working 2 full-time jobs. I'm not rich. I'm not wealthy. I'm living at home. Like, this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, I know how to build websites now. What can I do with little money? Alibaba. Bang. Even though it's in China, I loved sunglasses at the time. I don't know why.
You still do. You absolutely still love sunglasses.
You know, you go on my feed. I was looking
as a side note, me and Chris snowboard quite a bit, and Chris has the most insane sunglasses on the hill.
Thank you.
Every time we go out.
So
like no goggles. It'll be blizzarding, no goggles, and Chris is just out here in like some like rosé fucking sunglasses, looking good.
Fire, thank you. But yeah, I pride myself on super cheap fashion. Like, growing up in a town where I grew up and everybody was very, very wealthy, I would literally get made fun of growing up if I had clothes from Old Navy because it didn't have an alligator or a moose on it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it is.
Everyone listening to this can relate to that. That was middle school.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was middle school.
And even high school for us. But it was crazy because, like, I always found dope shit to wear, I guess, in my opinion. Not other people's opinion, but in my opinion, I could express myself through clothes, and I could do it in cheap fashion, which was great to me. So Alibaba offered me these amazing sunglasses where I would go out and the vanity of life. People would be like, oh my God, those are so cool. And I guess I let that get to me for a while. But like, I would pay $2.35 for a pair of sunglasses, and people would offer me $150 for them out while they were drunk at a party.
Sheesh.
And it happened enough in
Talk about it come up.
I'm telling you, it happened enough. The first time it happened, I'm on a boat party. My friend was DJing, and it was like a 4-hour party around Manhattan's harbor. And this kid was like, bro, those glasses are so fucking sick. They're on my head. I wasn't even wearing them. He was like, I'll give you $100 for them. Sure. I was like, dude, I can't do that. I paid less than $5 for them. He was like, $150, no questions asked.
You're a good man.
I mean, I just couldn't do it. Like, businessman or not, I got morals, you know? Like, and he was like, $150, no questions asked. I was like, show me the money. Kid pulls out $100 and $50, puts it in my hand. I took my glasses right off my head, gave it to him. Very next day, I go to a party at Webster Hall. Almost verbatim. A kid was like, dude, those glasses are so sick. I was like, thanks, man. Somebody just said the same thing yesterday. He's like, I'll give you $50 for them.
Done.
I was like, dude, I can't do it. I was like, I paid less than $5 for them. He goes, I'll give you $100 right now. I was like, if you got $100,
What is up with these? Hold on.
These people are rich in Manhattan, bro, and they just think they're ballers when they get like, look, Henny and ginger ale. It makes people do crazy shit.
He's not even listening. He gave you 50, and you were like, no.
I say no, and then he gives me 100. So now this is two.
Talk about a businessman.
Amen. 2 consecutive days in a row, and now I'm just like, holy shit! I'm like, light bulb, ding. Mm-hmm. I can build a website. I'm not amazing at it, but I can fucking build one. I don't even need to buy inventory. I can drop ship.
Yeah.
I can put a form in on my website when somebody types in their information, and even though their credit card is hidden, I can literally just take their money because it goes into my Square account at the time, and I can use my own money to purchase what they ordered off of my website from Alibaba and just drop ship it from Alibaba to their house. So I didn't need any capital, so I beat that problem that I ran into in the first couple businesses, not having capital and finding investors. And it was ridiculously lucrative for the first 2 years, and then bang, COVID hit, and nobody wanted anything from China.
Nobody wanted
nothing was getting
you
imported.
Couldn't get anything.
Yeah, and then nothing was being imported.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, oh shit, I was just making bank. I started investing in the stock market. I turned 12 grand into 33 grand in the first 3 months of COVID.
Just sunglasses.
Well, from sunglasses into the stock market now, because now I'm sitting there, I'm like, fuck, I'm like, sunglasses business is not working. I'm losing money now.
Right.
So I was like, okay, what do I do? My dad was a stockbroker for Goldman Sachs for 25 years. So I was like, I mean, he's got money. He's always saying we're poor, which is, side note, growing up, I always spent money. I was like, I need to live my life. But I never had money. My parents are filthy, filthy rich, and they're always saying that we're poor. So one day, I was taking a shower. You know those shower thoughts you have?
Yeah.
I was like, I need to start telling myself I'm poor. I'm like, the reason why they have money is because they brainwash themselves to think that they don't have any, so they don't spend it.
Yeah.
Now, other people you listen to on podcasts will be like, no, go buy a first-class ticket so you condition your brain to think that way.
I don't think you should listen to those people.
I don't.
Because I think wealth or poor is really a matter of how much liabilities you have, right? Because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, like that's kind of subjective to how much money you owe.
Exactly.
So like if you have a lot of business debt, if you have personal debt, if you have car payments to make, like you could be making $100,000 a year, but if you're paying, $1,500 to $2,000 to $3,000 a month in debt, then
it's about how much you keep.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You already heard that a million
So you
times.
could, I mean, it's super subjective. All right, and we're back.
Cool.
Where were we?
We're talking
Your parents being filthy, filthy rich.
They are, except that they'll let you believe they're completely poor, which is crazy to me because, like I said, like here I am thinking like everybody around me growing up.
Can you pass me another one of those beers?
Oh, snap, crackle, pop! You bet your bottom dollar I can, kind
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Alrighty. In the Rockies.
Cheers.
Touche. I was about to say cheers too. But yeah, it was just crazy because like it was just one of those shower thoughts. And when I started telling myself that I didn't have money, I stopped going to clubs every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I stopped going to parties Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. I stopped spending money on I bought a brand new Kia. Instead of making $600 payments a month with insurance included, I went and I sold that car and I bought a hoopty because I was like, I just need to be able to get to the mountain and to work and back. Why do I need to spend $600 a month on a car when I could just spend $2,500 at the time and get a decent vehicle? And it got me everywhere I needed to go. Regular gas was like $2.50. Like
what's been interesting for me too, like especially since starting this podcast venture and having more of like a focus per se. Like I've definitely went through phases of having money and spending a lot of money and then all my money running out and me having like credit card debt and then having to like work my way through the credit card debt and then not having credit card debt and then having money again and then like having that same repetitive cycle to now like over the last few months of really like honing in on, okay, this podcast is where I'm going to put all of my time. This podcast is going to be where I put all of my money to make sure that this is a venture that will one day take me out of the 9 to 5. This is partly me manifesting, so I say this often.
Go into 24 hours instead of 9 to 5 if it involves
but it's not work if you like what you're doing. And like I like talking to people, but nevertheless, like once I kind of made that distinction and that decision in my own like personal brain, it's almost been like I don't have a lot of money to spend, but all of the money that I have to spend is going to go to this one thing, and anything that's not this one thing is a threat on me building this one thing. 100%. And like I'm completely content with that. So like even now on the weekends I haven't even really been wanting to go out as much, and not like like Denver's really not a huge drinking scene, which is where most of the money goes when you go out, is paying for drinks and tipping bartenders and paying cover and stuff. Which, side note, like Denver's been a really awesome opportunity to find like crowds of people that aren't really all about going out and like shots, drink. Like I'll buy you around, you buy me around.
Yep.
Not a big fan of that culture anymore, just because it's super expensive and alcohol is just like,
it is. That's the only reason.
Alcohol is like really bad for you, man. Like my body's been running very well since I've cut down really on beer as we're fucking drinking beer. For sure. Cheers.
Cheers, my boy.
But like back to
for life.
the like the whole point is like now that I'm focused on this one thing, like I absolutely have the mentality of like anything that isn't this is a threat to this.
Exactly.
And you know, I've never really had a ton of money, you know, between you and us on this 40 minutes at the podcast. Now, you know, I'm not really big on saving. I've always wanted to be big on saving, but it's fucking hard.
That's a fact. You know, especially growing up in this time.
It's really hard to save money.
Especially growing up in this time. And parents from their generation, like they're always like, how do you have no money? How do you have no money? You work all the time.
There's so much to spend it on.
Where's your money going?
Much to spend it on.
I'm like, I buy lunch 5 days a week, and that's $13 for a sandwich. That's almost a whole paycheck when you're working one full-time job, a little bit more than minimum wage. And this is back in 2015. Now, wages have gone up, but inflation's gone up, as you guys know, so it's all in relativity. So yes, I've always been in the spend money because they always say YOLO. Well, I died. It wasn't YOLO anymore because I'm still here. And I was like, holy shit, this is chance 2. YOLO, I spent all my fucking money. I lived my life. I partied every day, Monday through Sunday. I made the greatest of friends. I traveled the world. But I've broken so many bones without health insurance. Now you're looking at $200,000 of bills and you're like,
yikes,
what do I do? Like, uh-oh. Now you're like, what am I going to do when I'm 50? Social Security's running out. Like, what the fuck am I going to do? I got to start investing. Like, and that's why I love the stock market. A lot of people that I know are like hesitant to get into the market. Right now we're in a recession, quote unquote. This is the absolute best time to take more than 10% of your paycheck and invest in anything you can that you think will, 1, pay you dividends, 2, will compound. I don't care if it's a Roth IRA or in the stock market, but recessions are where billionaires and millionaires are made. Even if you start with a little bit of money, the prices are low.
Yeah.
In 10 years, it's going to go high. Every 10 years on average, we have a recession. People don't understand that. But I didn't understand that, even though my dad lived it for 25 years. He never really taught it to us. He didn't bring his work home with him. But I started investing. Like I said, I turned 12 into over 30 in like less than 6 months in the beginning of the pandemic. And that really sparked some shit for me because I was like, dude, I've been working 80 hours a week and I've never made this much money in this amount of time. So now I'm like, okay, my money is working for me. I literally go to sleep at night, and the first thing I do when I wake up, occasionally, like people say don't check social media. I fucking check social media as the second thing I do because it gets my brain moving. Like, even though it's like debilitating to most people, if you do it for 3 minutes, it gets the fucking shit functioning. But prior to that, I look at my fucking stock portfolios because I want to see how much money I made while I was sleeping for the 4.5 to 6.5 hours I went to sleep on. And 9 out of 10 times, I make $200 to $2,000 while I go to fucking sleep.
How does that work though? Because and this is just my naivety. I think that's a word.
It's okay.
Naiveness to the stock market because I invest, but just like kind of casually. But I thought the market closes and reopens like Eastern time, 9 a.m. or
9 a.m. to 4, or it's 9 to 4, I believe.
So how are you making money? Like, because I know there's after hours tradings, which I don't exactly understand, but like, how does that whole system work?
Essentially, it's not as literal as I said it. To be like, yes, you do go to sleep and there's after hour trading, but you don't really have access to that as a small time trader like I am or like you would be. We're not funds, stuff like that, like hedge funds. Or corporate America, you know, like Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch.
Yeah.
So that basically, to me, I'm not 100% cultured in the stock market. So take my advice with a grain of salt. But what I mean is like,
you're not licensed.
Being in Colorado, we're 2 hours behind New York. So when I wake up at 7 a.m., New York stock market is opening. So if I wake up at 9 a.m. here, the market's been open for 2 hours. Now, again, the market fluctuates all day long, but if I wake up at 9 a.m. here right before I go to work and I see that in the 2 hours the market's been open, I have $700 more in my account than I did yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is going to be a great fucking day. I'm like,
Right.
I've already made more than I'm going to make at work.
Let's also be honest. There's days you've woken up when you've had $200 to $2,000 less.
I lost, in March, my brother and sister were out here visiting, and I stupidly put all my eggs in 2 baskets, and I lost $30,000. All the money I basically
That's a lot of eggs.
made. Literally, I only had 3,000 separate from those 2 stocks that I went into. And I went into Apple and NIO. And NIO is an electric car company from China that's supposed to be competing with Tesla. So I was like, oh, this is going to be the future.
Yeah.
Number 2 to Tesla is still going to make me bank in the long run.
Okay.
So I didn't sell, and they're gradually working their way back up. But I literally woke up and I puked. I literally puked in the morning, and I almost cried. My brother was like, it's okay, it's just money. And then in my head, I was like, I've lived homeless.
It's a lot of
before.
money, yeah.
So to me, I was like, I don't need money. Money doesn't make me. And I'll take the quote from the people on Instagram, I make money. I have 1,000,000 times over. No matter how many times I failed, I've always been able to get up, brush myself off, start again, and rebuild something. They always say a great man can build an empire. Any great man can, but it takes a truly great man to fall off and rebuild another one and then another one if need be.
It sounds like you have multiple times.
Half empires. They're not fully built.
It's all right.
Still not successful.
Empires to come, right?
That's the game plan,
You know?
hopefully. Like,
how old are you right now, Chris?
I'm getting older, 32 now, but I was talking about this with my girlfriend the other day. It's crazy to think about, like, 32. Even if we live to like 96, let's not even say 96. If I live to 75, I still have an entire lifetime ahead of me.
Yeah.
Plus a couple years that I haven't lived compared to what I have.
I feel like in today's day and age, like hitting your stride and hitting like your financial capabilities comes to a lot of people in their 50s.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Like it seems like, at least from the guys that I follow, that are more like podcast figures or comedians, you know, I pay attention to a lot. But a lot of these guys are like 50 and 60, and like they didn't start making money until their 40s. Yep. Which like blows my mind, and it gives me even more like eager to get going now into my 20s, and even you in your 30s, because like you just said, a whole nother lifetime of yours at the moment is 64
plus
64,
yeah.
And like you're going to be healthy and active. Like we have the means and the technology now that we're going to live way beyond the life expectancy of those that are getting old now, for sure. Like I don't have any information that I've researched behind this, but I've heard on a couple podcasts from people that do study, I don't even know what the actual name of the science is, but life expectancy and anti-aging technologies, that like people that are getting born now are probably going to live to the range of like 120 and 150. That's just wild. Because of the access to stem cells and all this research and you know, technology becoming available.
It's wild you bring that up, because if that is the case, then a business that I saw the other day, basically while watching other people, I was researching how to pitch, and I was watching other people put their pitches to angel investors online. Mm-hmm. And this young lady, absolutely brilliant, but she understands, based off of the data that her and her team from her college have recorded, that if that is the case, the resources for food, not just other resources and non-renewable resources, are not going to be sustainable for what our population is supposed to grow to with technology advancing. So she has come up with a business where they literally breed insects high in protein, and they turn it into flour. And it's basically a food substitute. You cannot taste the difference. It tastes like chicken, but it's higher in protein. It's higher in iron. It's basically more healthy for you to eat bugs than it is for half the shit that we're eating now.
Interesting.
And I think that they're onto not just $1 billion idea, but that is a world-changing idea. Like the thought of eating bugs, you're like, ew.
For sure.
But then when you watch other people,
well, because we think of bugs as like these gross, gushy things that we see out there. And by me having this conversation and saying this sentence, I also think eating bugs is gross.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
But like if it was packaged properly and like we also eat hot dogs.
Yeah, they grind exactly.
You know, and if it looks like a cool shape, then we're cool with it.
That's it. I mean, even the glizzy ain't a cool shape for us, my guy.
Give it. Well, you're right.
Some people it might be. To each their own. But like, I mean, this girl is a genius because she knows that, and she knows that subconscious effect from people visualizing eating bugs is going to be problematic for her business model. What she did was she ground it up into powder, and now she made recipes with those powders. And she sells the recipe in the powders. So like, normally people will do like a breadcrumb chicken. Instead of breadcrumb, you use bug crumb.
Caterpillar.
But you can't taste the difference.
Caterpillar chicken.
Yep, it's crazy. I don't know if they're caterpillars, but whatever bugs they're breeding in her lab, it's just crazy to ponder.
I mean, it's something that I've been curious about, is how this like level of humanity that we have is sustainable. I've been curious, like, I mean, I have no education on it to really understand, but I hear people that are smarter than me talking about it. And, you know, especially Elon Musk has voiced a lot of his concerns about, you know,
Humanity.
Well, he's concerned about a lack of population. He thinks that in the coming years, like the opposite of the baby boom, that people aren't having kids anymore, or at the extent that they used to be, and then that's going to be a severe decline of our population. Because there's a lot more people out here that are wealth focused and goal focused, and which are all great things. But I think people listening can relate. Like, while you're chasing your goals and your dreams, like, you're not focused on building a family until you feel like you've established. This is also me speaking for myself. Like, until you've established yourself and are in the right financial position and relationship position to have a family.
Yeah. It costs more than $1 million to have a child. Not right off the bat, but throughout the course of their life. But even just the initial charges of like going to the hospital, it's like, it's absurd.
Yeah.
And like my cousin Nikki, love you, Nikki. She is adopted from China. My Aunt Andrea was just like on a tour in China, and she found this little girl on the side of the road. In China, basically at a certain number of children, your family has to pay a tax in order to have kids after that, because their population is exponentially growing.
Didn't they lift that?
Maybe.
I thought they lifted that.
They could have, but back at the time that Nikki's now over 21 years old.
Yeah.
So this was when she was like 2 years old. But my Aunt Andrea had to go through this intense process to adopt Nikki from China, because she found her on the side of the road, and I guess her family couldn't afford her, which is mind-boggling to me. Because could you imagine if they did that here in the United States of America, where they taxed you to have children? Now, on a contrary but side note to this that like kind of correlates to it, if you go into spirituality, and like a lot of people that are conspiracy theorists, they talk about a reptilian race and all this bullshit. Like, it's basically, when it comes down to it, it's good versus evil. And they say the reptilian race thrives off of fear. The only point in life to spiritual people that study this is to procreate. And by not procreating, the evil is winning the war, which is crazy to think about, because they're basically instilling financial distress on people so that they don't procreate.
This is a conspiracy that you're
very much
quoting.
so.
Okay.
Very much so. This is not something that I believe. This is just like you hear people speak on podcasts, and I have friends who literally dedicate.
I can see how that could potentially be spun, but I definitely don't see how that is in any case the reality of what's going on.
The only reality I take from it, is don't ever let fear run your life. You don't have to believe the conspiracy nonsense.
Yeah.
But if anything scares
that's a healthy note to take out.
If anything scares you, 9 out of 10 times do it. If it scares you because it's definitely going to kill you, don't do it. But if it's something that scares you, 9 out of 10 times you're going to grow from that experience. So 100% take advantage of it. Yeah. That's what I take from these crazy nuts who speak and preach about reptilian races and people drinking blood. Like, they're fucking nuts.
What other role models do you have other than
role models for me? Honestly,
crazy nuts?
I love comedians and I love motivational speakers.
What comedians do you like?
I'm huge with Mike Epps. I'm still huge with Dave Chappelle from back in the day.
Yeah,
I still watch him.
He just put out clips recently, a special recently.
Yep, my favorite comedian of all time, still to this day, Cat Williams. Like, people don't understand. Like, even with the mainstream media, after all the stuff that negatively happened to him, every stand-up that man does or has done that's gone on a special for some type of network, the message is always incredible. Like, if you're able to see the message that he speaks through his comedy, you can utilize that in every aspect of your life. Like, he's got that one quote. He's like, I love haters. He's like, there might be bugs in the rest of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me. He's like, tell me that my hair ain't luxurious when you know it is, bitch. Like, he's basically just, the whole time he's saying, you got to be in tune with your star player.
Right.
Like, you can't let people get you down. Motherfuckers are going to talk shit to you no matter what. They're going to try to get you down no matter what, because in order for most people in the world to get ahead, they got to step on someone else to do so. It's only truly beautiful people who don't do that. They elevate other people as they elevate themselves instead of put other people down. And it's wild because, like, as you start to consciously understand that and you recognize, like, in your friend groups, like, oh, you have a phenomenal friend group, like, and I love being a part of it.
Thank you.
Because coming out to Denver, a lot of like-minded people have moved here, moved away from the negative friend groups they grew up with. I'm not saying they're bad friends. It's just like they just weren't like-minded. You're instilled in a bubble when you get put into elementary school or sports teams or anything you can to socialize with kids in your town. But after 18 years of doing so, you migrate to different places.
Absolutely.
And you meet people that are actually genuinely amazing, and it changes your perspective on that. But
I can speak to that for sure from moving here.
it's crazy.
I mean, the people that I've run into since I've moved from Denver are so positive and so empowering to like the friends around them, and it's just like a breath of fresh air to meet like people that are so far from the definition of toxic.
Yep.
That not to say that, you know, other people were that. Like, I've definitely tried to vet those out of my life for a long time. But just like bringing new definition to like positivity and like empowering, and like a new definition to trying to like put down judgment when they notice it, like speaking out about it, and almost like not bullying, not like talking down on people, but just like speaking out when someone's like maybe unconsciously putting someone down, and not even like maybe by just habit, you know. And that's just how like people have been in conversation in the past, and sometimes it takes somebody to speak up and be like, hey, that's like not a nice thing to say right now. And then you catch people and they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. You know,
it's a fact. And the thing is, like,
it's important to do that.
A lot of that comes down to parenting, because everybody wanted to give their kids a better experience than they had growing up. So everybody's telling their kids like, oh, you're the best. You could be anything. You're beautiful. It creates like a subconscious narcissism for our generation. Unless you go to therapy and understand that like most of your tendencies were narcissistic. And I'm not saying everybody's like that, but like I certainly was. But then it comes down to the fact of, outside of the parenting aspect of it, it comes down to brain fart. What was the last thing you said? Sorry.
Talking about people just being very friends out here that have been very quick to call people out on negativity and judgment.
So Bob Marley said this quote. I don't know if he quoted someone else for it. He says, the only way for evil forces to succeed in this world is for enough good men to do nothing, which full circle comes right back to you need to be able to speak up when you see something that you know morally is wrong.
Powerful.
Like, and that's what it comes down to. You've seen that clip all the time. They're like, oh, are you a rich man, Bob? Are you a rich? He's like, what do you mean rich? Do you mean like possessions, like riches, like money? And they're like, yeah, what kind of material things do you have? He's like, I'm not rich like that. I'm rich in music. I'm rich in love. I'm rich in culture. Like that's a mindset.
Well, and I wish that our society allowed that to be like a sustainable mindset.
It does. People don't think it does.
But you need money too.
100%.
You know, you really, especially with today's inflation, you can't live on $30,000-$40,000 a year. Like that's a struggle.
In America.
True. You could move to other places.
I have a friend who serves 6 months a year in Mexico because his rent in Mexico for that 6 months is less than $1,000, and he lives in Isla Mujeres. He makes money, probably like $35 a day bartending in Isla Mujeres because it's all inclusive. But then for 6 months he comes back as a bartender in Manhattan, works 2 days a week, makes $3,000 a night, and sustains his entire lifestyle to go surfing 6 months a year. Wow. That's what he does.
Wow.
So while on a micro scale in this country or in other countries, if you don't look outside of the box, yes, you could feel restricted like that. Because again, it's all relativity.
Yeah.
But if you find a place that soothes your soul, like let's say Costa Rica, Mexico, Colombia, Cuba, even Florida, even California, or for us, or for me essentially, Colorado, like,
you just kind of opened my mind a little bit.
It's mind-boggling. People don't think about that. And that comes from Pablo Escobar, which is fucked up to say, but Pablo Escobar, all these people in these countries were selling drugs to people in their own countries. And he was like, you guys don't have vision. You don't have vision. We could put this on a macro scale. The vision for him was the United States of America, was Europe, not Colombia, not Mexican cartels, not transporting through Cuba, until he made an exponential amount per brick in the States. That's where the vision is. You have to think outside the box. That's how you excel not just yourself, your business, but the entire world.
True.
Like they always say that quote, like nothing's possible until somebody crazy enough that thinks it is makes it possible. Like everybody will shoot you down nonstop, and you've learned that with this too. It's even you've got great friends. Everybody supports the podcast through Denver and meeting people out here with like-minded people. Like you could tell your friends, I'm gonna do this. And every one of your friends, if they can't afford to help you, they will share your shit, they will comment, they will show so much love and do what they can to build you up. Growing up, not so much. That's why I love living here, because everybody, like you said, is so far from toxic. it's like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think it has to do, speaking of like people here from Denver and Colorado, do you think it has to do with the physical like geolocation of where people are living and being in such close proximity to the mountains?
I think there's so many different variable factors that go into it that definitely takes a chunk of it out for sure. More importantly, like, I mean, we have a place here called Garden of the Gods.
Yeah.
You go there and you're like, this is heavenly.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Heavenly in Lake Tahoe, you're like, this is heavenly. Like, why would the whole world not want to live here?
Right.
Like, but that only resonates with certain kinds of people. Like, I had a friend when I lived in San Diego. He came to visit me, and you and I are the type of people, we love to go hiking, we love to work out, we love to snowboard, we love to do active stuff. I was best friends with this kid for 30 years. We've known each other since we were 2 years old. So at the time, maybe it was 22 years because this is 2014, 15. And he came to visit me in San Diego. And it was like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's just still sitting on my couch watching Family Guy. And I'm like, yo, let's go do something.
Yeah.
And he looked me dead in the eyes, paused the show. He said, Chris, I don't know how we've been friends for so long. He goes, you love to do shit? He goes, I could sit on this couch and watch Family Guy for the next 95 years and never leave and be completely content.
That's crazy.
And I thought, the same
unhealthy.
thing. It's not because he's very successful, so like he does his own things, but it was just
Okay.
crazy. It opened my mind because I was like, dude, not everybody's like you.
I think that's unhealthy.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both. But
For
at the
sure,
same
like
time,
it'd be different. It also would be different if he's like, I could sit here and watch like educational documentaries and like expand my mind.
Yeah.
And maybe like maybe I'm taking the example too literally.
But
yeah.
Still, it was just, for him, he was like, dude, in his mind, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
That I have to constantly be doing things, and I just can't be content just sitting there.
Well, it's a level of like ADHD and hyperactivity, but this is a whole tangent that we could very well go down. But I for sure think that like ADHD in quotes is like a made up disease.
I do too.
A made up
it's a
thing, and
superpower
I
if you
think
can harness it right.
it's like a thing that they just put on kids when they're younger who are hyperactive. But those kids were never meant to be sitting still for 9 hours a day, which is so unnatural to how we've grown up for so many years outside of like the education system. But like, I think that people who have ADHD and have this hyperactivity need to be like shown how to find what they're passionate about, and then they'll focus solely on that at like aggressive speed that we need.
Thank you. So it all comes down to the age-old question of nature versus nurture. I'm sure you've heard schooling is designed to create employees. I would say, based off of not data, but people that I know, especially myself with ADHD, we have hyper-focus. That's why I call it a superpower. If nurtured properly and harnessed properly, a child with ADHD can change the world.
Absolutely.
It's not a hyperactive disorder. It's a hyperactive, not being nurtured properly superpower. Those children are not designed to be employees. Those children are designed to be free thinkers, visionaries, humanitarians, and world changers.
Yeah. Well,
that's what needs to happen.
And as somebody who is easily distracted myself, like I am kind of envious of people who can hyper focus on a single task and just like obsess over it, because like there's certain things like physical things I can do out in nature. I can hyper obsess about that. But when it comes to me like working from home, and maybe it's because I'm working on something that my brain really doesn't want to be doing.
Passion is purpose.
Like I can't hyper focus on it. Like what I hyper focus on is the podcast and like Instagram and like daydreaming of what I'd rather be doing, which hopefully, again, manifesting this right now, comes to fruition in the next year. That is
your gut telling you that that's what you deserve in this life.
I feel
like, and the thing is, your mindset is not, hey, this is a short-term goal. Your mindset, which is phenomenal, is this is what I want to do. This is my journey.
Yeah.
So going back to what you were saying earlier about comedians who, are in their 40s and 50s making it. They've been doing what you were doing for 10, 15 years before they made their shot.
Which is why I have patience.
But that's what it is. A lot of people want that quick fix. They want to get rich quick. A lot of people don't understand it's about the journey.
Yeah.
And even though you have to do some things like work that don't pertain to what your true vision is, that's still a stepping stone for you to build your foundation to who you want to dream to be and grow into.
Absolutely.
And I admire you for doing it, because this is badass as fuck. Pardon my
thanks,
French.
man. I mean, we're probably almost an hour into this, and I feel like it's going really well. And like, honestly, while I've been talking to you, I've also been having like side thoughts of like, oh, this is dope. Yeah. Like, this is for sure what I could do for quite some time as a job.
Like I said, I told you what you're doing right now in this small stepping stone of our niche community of friends.
This is big. This episode right now is big.
Yeah,
for me personally.
I love it. But every episode that you've done to me is big because, like I said, I'm getting to know our friend group in ways that I would have never gotten to know them while we're all hanging out together. You're bringing people in, and they're expressing themselves and teaching not only you but the rest of us who listen what's unique about them. And then you're sitting there as a listener from the friend group who might sometimes have anxiety in social environments. And you're sitting like, dude, we're all the same. Mm-hmm. Like, what am I getting socially anxious for around these people? Like, they like me. I like them. We all speak about the same stuff. Everybody's gone through trials and tribulations. Everybody's overcome nonsense. Everybody's gone through bullshit.
Yeah.
And everybody found themselves here in Denver. And now we're all a group of friends. Firstly,
thank you for saying that. That means a lot to recognize that. And I also have, like, on the note of everybody being the same, like, honestly, a year or two ago, I kind of noticed, like, while I was going through my own troubles of, you know, getting the first job out of college and realizing that this wasn't it, and like trying to rebound and bounce to a new position, and then realizing that position wasn't really it. And like, while this is all going on, like reaching out to friends and colleagues about, and just having like individual personal conversations about like the troubles that I'm going through and then the troubles they're going through. And I kind of started to realize like, oh, we're all like, at least like of the age group, like let's just say at that time it was 22 to 26, like, oh, we're all going through the same thing actively at the same time. Of we all just graduated, we all took the first job we could get that gave us a salary, and now we're,
if you were even lucky enough to get a job,
absolutely,
some people have to go to serving, which sucks.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess that's fair. Like, of the people that were in that, you know, realm of people who just got a job, it's like, oh, we're all feeling the same thing. We're all going through the same thing. Nobody wants to do this job, and it's everyone's like this is a make or break time in your I'm using it broadly, like your life of, do you want to lay down and accept the position and take the paycheck?
Do you conform to society, or do you chase your dream?
Or do you want to excel and keep thinking? And it's like there's stages along my life that I've noticed that like maybe that's what free choice and free thinking is. It's like, is now where you want to give up? Is now where you want to keep pushing? Like, you can give up and take it easy and sit on the couch and watch Family Guy. You absolutely can do that. Or you can get up, you can go for a hike, you can think about a brief intermission. As I was saying, if I can reconnect to that fucking thought we were just on. It's hard to get back into it after that little break. Basically, I was just talking about how like this is a make or break time of
when to give up, when not to give up, what's the choice, and how to know what the right time is to make that choice.
Right. With the free speech, that's what we were just talking about, the free speech, not free thinking. Yeah, basically, I was just going over this time in our lives of like being a discovery phase of working your way through who you want to be, how you want to be, and what kind of you want to accomplish. Is there's a lot of people that have a real struggle finding what they're passionate about. I myself took upon it to figure that out over, really many years. I mean, there was never like a specific time where I was like, okay, this is what it is. But I do remember that there was a specific time when I was like, I have no fucking clue what I like. I have no clue what I like.
That's the consciousness.
This was like, and that was like going into college, maybe even like having that thought initially in high school. Like, I have no idea. I have no idea what I like. And that was almost like I don't know if it was scary at the time, but it was definitely a wake up call. And it was a cause for action of like, I don't know what it is that I am destined to do. I don't know how to figure it out. What I can do is just like literally item by item, process of elimination, investigate something. This isn't it. Kick it to the curb. Investigate something. That's not it. I don't want to do that. On to the next thing. And it's funny, like I've talked to some friends recently about this specific topic, and I think a lot of people get discouraged in themselves by investigating paths and then a lot of people say they give up on them, but I don't look at it that way. And I try to tell people that that's not what's happening.
It's a lesson.
What's happening? Well, even like on a lower scale of that, like it's more just, no, this was just a trial and error for you. Like you investigated this path, this hobby, this pursuit, this entrepreneurial venture, and either it's just not it. Like you looked into it, it's just not it. That's okay to say that and accept that. Or this is just not the right time in your life to pursue that with the, vigor that's needed.
You just got to make sure you're taking notes from every experience you put yourself and immerse yourself into, whether or not it's a failed trial or it's a successful trial or it's something that you totally hated thinking you were going to love it or vice versa. As long as you take any small amount of knowledge from that situation and are able to apply it to the next trial in order to see if that's what ignites a fire in your soul, then you're in good money, in my opinion. If you don't, well, then that's where you need to take this time, if you're listening, to take a step back and consciously recognize that you're not learning lessons from your experiences and you're not implementing the wisdom that you're being granted from your experiences moving forward as you evolve through life. So everybody at your age, even my age, like you said, we still have another 20, 30 years before we really need to be established. Like, we're still young in my eyes. Even though I always say, oh, I'm getting older, my bones hurt. Like, there is still another lifetime or two to be lived.
Yeah.
Like you, if you want right now, you could be a completely different person. I always tell people, in order to figure out who you want to grow into, it's an exercise that one of my leadership conferences working for a company called Power Home Remodeling taught us. Write your own eulogy. It sounds morbid, but if you write your own eulogy, which is basically what you want someone to speak about you at your funeral or the day after you've passed, what you want them to say about you, that gives you the foundation of the type of person you want to grow into. Now you can take a step back and be like, all right, what do I have to do as a strategy to become that person?
I think that's beautiful.
It's crazy to think about, but it is.
Right, and it kind of, that reminds me of a quote or mantra or whatever word you want to use of something that Matthew McConaughey says. I read his or listened to his autobiography, which I highly recommend, called Green Lights. It's really cool. There's the fact that he narrates it himself is even more fascinating. But like over the course of that book, you really get like a deep dive into the mind of that man, who is a pretty unique person. I think most people can say that. But he's talking about when he was younger, people were asking him who his role models are. What's your role model? And like he never had an answer to that, but he never had a specific person to answer to that. But what he said is me in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then when I get 10 years, me in 10 more years. Sure. And like, I absolutely resonate with that because I myself really haven't had specific role models growing up. Like there's nobody that I necessarily wanted to be. But I know who I want to become.
Exactly.
And even now in today's day, like I look forward to the time when I can be self-sufficient and I can break free from being an employee and I can, have the time and the freedom to schedule my year how I want to, not my week, my year, right? Like I want to be able to take time off. I want to be able to work my ass off for 3 months during the summer and snowboard for the entire winter and travel. And like, that's not going to happen when I'm working for somebody else.
I wish I could agree with that because a year ago I would have agreed with that. I met a gentleman named Caleb Polly snowboarding last year.
Caleb Polly?
Caleb Polly.
Shout out.
Straight up.
It sounds like it's going
good. If
you're
listening, you changed my life, dog. Like, I've always been the entrepreneur. I've always had to be that mindset where it's like, I got to make the rules. I can't work for someone else. That's what's going to set me free. Well, I have a job right now that pays me more than I've ever been paid before. The bonuses are amazing. Unlimited paid time off days. Unlimited mental health days. 2 powder days to go snowboarding a year. You're allowed to take up to 2 consecutive weeks off. Just don't do it taking advantagely. And that's working for someone else. So I'm somebody who, I've been arrested. I've done the worst of the worst. Like, I've been writing a book for 5 years. Like, if you see my Instagram tag at The Chronicles of Money, that's branding because I've been writing a book called The Chronicles of Money for the last 5 years based off of a memoir of my life, of the evolution of being a great kid who had everything, who didn't need to turn to selling drugs, who didn't need to rob drug dealers and be a stick-up kid for a fucking decade, who didn't need to do negative things and ruin people's lives, who then learned to take a step back after a fatal accident happened and then changed his entire life. But it's all branding. And Caleb, like as a person in my shoes, you sit there and everybody in your life is like, you're never going to get a job. You're never going to be able to do this. You're never going to be able to do that. Well, it is about what you know, but it's also more about who you know. More importantly, it's about you being genuine. Because for the first 8 years of trying to grow into being a good person, people still don't fucking trust you. Like, the people you grew up with, they know who you were that they knew. So, like,
it's hard to change a reputation.
And that's what people need to hold true and dear, because it's taken over 10 years to even remotely get reputation back with the people I grew up with. Prior to the age of 14, those people knew me as an all-star athlete. Everybody they wanted their kids to hang out with. They always told my parents, oh, you raise your child so well. He's so polite. He doesn't accept food here. He doesn't put his arms on the table. He holds the door open. He says, please and thank you. He's so great. But then all of a sudden you have the other side of me. I got the angel on one shoulder at that age. But then you have the side of me who's like, yo, I fucking love kicking down drug dealers' doors, putting guns down their throat and taking everything they have.
Yikes.
I did that for a long time. As a rich white kid, like, I didn't need to do that. Like, I played on international soccer teams and baseball teams. I had a travel lacrosse team, and I went to a private all-boys Catholic high school. I didn't need to do that. So it goes back to nature versus nurture. Like, what the fuck?
Why did you do it then?
After I found out I was adopted by just my father, and I met who my birth father was, I learned that nature versus nurture. It was in my nature to do that, even though my nurture from my dad, who's the Wall Street guy, went against everything my nature. That's why we always butted heads growing up. We fought nonstop, physically, mentally. It was like a game to us. It was fucked up. Now in hindsight, we hang out all the time. We love each other so much. We laugh at it. It's crazy. But my birth father was in the mob. So now I'm sitting there, I'm like, that answers all the questions I didn't even know I had. I was predisposed, like genetically predisposed to act a certain way. But when I became conscious of that and I made that decision, I don't want to fucking be like that. Now I could focus on the nurture aspect of it. Now I'm like, okay, I want to be more like my dad. He's smart. He has money. He has everything he wants. Like, he may not have friends, but he chose not to have, like, he's got friends, but it's not like, what I thought as friends growing up was like, I needed to be friends with everybody. They're really just acquaintances. They're not my best friends. My dad has 3 best friends. He's been friends with them for 30 years. I never saw myself like that because I was always the party animal. I was always the guy supplying drugs to people. I was the guy who capitalized in every situation. When you live like that from the age of 14 to 22, and you realize that every single person you looked at was just a dollar sign, there's nothing genuine about that.
It's a rough way to look at people.
Yeah, and while you don't understand it going through it, because let's just call it narcissism at its finest, like, you don't even realize that's what's going on until you go see a therapist. The people around you recognize it, which is why all the people that I would have lived and died for, I was friends with kids from the age of 5 years old until 19, 20 years old, and we don't speak anymore. And it has nothing to do with them. They made the conscious decision not to speak to me because I wasn't aligning with what their values were. In my mind, I was like, oh, we're all best friends. It never occurred to me that people didn't like me. It never occurred to me. But when you reach out to people and they don't answer you anymore, and these are kids who lived at your house when their parents kicked them out for 3 months, and your mom did their laundry and made them breakfast, lunch, and dinner and drove them to work, and they don't talk to you, that forces you to take a step back and be like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Right. And you realize, like, I'm doing everything wrong. And that's one thing that's crazy to me, because, like, I say this to people who claim to be sad or depressed or not happy all the time. Like, my girlfriend and I have this conversation a lot about toxic positivity. I don't fucking believe it. There's no such thing as toxic positivity. Do you want to know why? Positivity is a fucking mindset. Okay? I went from being suicidal and depressed and scared and feeling inferior, even though everything I thought I did was excelling. I still felt bad on the inside. So when you feel bad about yourself on the inside, you need to take a step back and understand that everything you thought you knew is fucking wrong. Period. Some of it might be right.
But if you're take not, a readjustment.
Yeah, but if you're not fucking happy, I don't give a shit what you fucking know. You're wrong, because the only goal in life should not be money, it should be fucking happiness. The only goal in life is to be happy and to keep happy with no complaints and to never feel sorry to anyone, especially yourself.
Well, let me stop you. Let's riff on that for a sec, because let's start with, like, the toxic positivity thing, because I definitely agree that maybe that term isn't the best way to put it, but I also do feel like there's a lot of nuance in the conversation we're about to have. but there's definitely a negative aspect to being positive to a fault, because there's no action behind your positivity.
That's where genuineness comes in.
People can easily push off responsibility by being positive, be like, oh, it'll work out. And like, when I say this, let me those listening, like,
Continue.
listen to the whole thing, because like there's a difference between saying, oh, it'll work out, oh, don't worry, like the universe will take care of it, like everything's going to be okay, which to a sentence is relatively true. And like, I do say that a lot, but then on the back end of that, there's a lot of work that has to be done in your mental, and there's a lot of work that has to be done physically to make sure that everything's going to be okay. And that's like a sifting through the situation on your personal side, because like somebody can be toxically positive and not take any action behind that positivity, and then it becomes disingenuous, because like it's almost like pushing off responsibility, like, oh, I don't have to help you with this because like I know everything's going to be okay.
Correct.
I don't have to take any action out of my day for someone I care about, because like, oh, it's going to be good, like you're going to be fine, don't worry. But there's like the other hand of it, of being like helpfully positive. I'm sure there's a better way to put that.
I think
but
you're
like,
right on that.
Like
aspect.
motivational, and like everything's going to be okay. Like, here's how we're going to work through this. Like giving more tangible things, or really believing that and being there for your friends. Like, I think there's a fine line, and like, I don't know. I just feel like it's important to make that distinction.
You're right. Now to credit exactly what you're saying, let me rephrase what I said. Because instilling, I guess, motivational positivity is where I'm coming from. I'm speaking about people who are quote unquote toxically positive, but they lead by example. It's not toxically positive if your lifestyle has grown from suicidal shit. And I'm not just speaking to me, I'm talking about people like David Goggins, I'm talking about people like Gary Vee. Like, these people, like, some people could consider them toxically positive, but they're fucking not, because they live it every single day. And while not everything works for some people, you can take notes from these people and implement what works for you.
Absolutely.
Now, again, like, you could have stage 4 cancer and be like, oh, I'm going to be okay. That's toxically positive, but it's not, because it soothes the brain. But like,
that's
what
a
I'm
different
saying.
situation.
You know
for
what
sure.
I'm saying? Though?
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, if you see a dog that's like hanging in an electric fence, as morbid as that sounds, you're like, oh, he'll be okay, and nobody's gonna take him
Right,
off the
and
fence
that's an
water.
excuse for you not to do
Yeah.
anything. Like, that's a problem.
But that to me, that's not real positivity. That's a front. That's fake. That's without the execution. Look, it's like the same thing as dreams. Dreams are always going to be dreams without execution. You could dream about all you fucking want, have the best ideas in the world, like aspirations to save the world for me. That was a great idea. I didn't execute it properly. It's still a fucking dream. It never became real. No matter how much I wrote it down, no matter how much I manifested it, spoke about it, and did everything I could as a human being to bring it to fruition in what my eyes was the right way to do it, it still didn't work. That's not being toxically positive, though, because the toxic positivity that's not toxic in my eyes, that came from that, was the lesson learning. Okay, I can overcome a failure. Okay, I learned from this failure. I've also networked and made a ton of people, or met a ton of people that can help me grow the next idea.
Right.
And even after the next idea, maybe I could revisit the first idea. But again, it all comes back to, like, your mind is the most powerful thing that you have. It's the most incredible tool that human beings possess, and people don't realize that. They underestimate it. They take it for granted. Like, people like Kobe,
I think because everybody doesn't have a powerful mind.
you can train yourself to be.
Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can. 100%. I agree with you. However, I think that some people don't recognize it because they don't.
And that's why they need to listen to the Mason J Show. Come on, you guys.
I mean,
like,
we'll get there for sure. Absolutely tune in. But there's a lot of, like, I'll be honest with you, like, Joe Rogan's podcast has, what's the word I'm looking for? His podcast has shaped the personality and the character and, like, the vocabulary and the curiosity that I have and, like, the person that I am today, without a doubt. Like, an hour commute to work for over a year gives you a lot of time to listen to podcasts, and, like, the way that he works through his episodes and, like, is an interviewer and is a podcaster and is a conversation specialist, like,
for sure,
has absolutely changed the way that I communicate, not only on the episodes, but just, like, throughout my day to day. and like realizing that every single person that you come in contact with is somebody that has been through a lot. Everyone's been through a lot. Like there's absolutely not a single person out there that is 25, 32 that has not been through some shit and got them to where they are. And like everybody's story is specific and relatable and unique, and like everyone has something to learn from somebody else, as long as like given the proper platform to express themselves or just like open up about it. And that kind of ties back to what you were talking about earlier in the podcast. But that's kind of like my vision, you know, Dude, to put all this together.
I agree. I love Joe Rogan. And to quote Joe Rogan, who quoted, I don't know, one of those ancient guys, it's better to be a gardener in a war than, let's rephrase. Rewind. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Correct.
So looking back on my life, I look at all the fucked up shit I did, but I also look at all the accolades I have in athletics and in education. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's the fucking warrior side of me. That's the devil on one shoulder being like, yo, you can fucking hang with the worst of the worst. You have knowledge of the worst tactics that people can ever think up. But dying, coming back to life, meeting my fucking maker, however you want to look at that, because in the last episode I talked about that experience, it changed me on the inside, externally, moving forward. And that shit was crazy, because like now I'm the gardener.
Do you want to give just a quick synopsis of like that incident that happened?
So I got in a snowboarding accident. I thought I just broke a rib, and that the rib might have like punctured along. And again, in my eyes at that time, it was a minuscule injury. But it turns out that I had ripped my spleen completely in half. It was hanging by a thread, and I was internally bleeding. So me being naive in New Jersey, as a New Yorker, we used to call it Dirty Jersey. I was like, yo,
we still call it that.
Facts. But New Jersey represent. You got good pizza at least. That being said, shout out to Mountain Creek. You guys always had the dopest parks ever. But I fucked myself up on a wooden rail made out of a tree, and I thought I could drive home. And again, I've broken ribs before playing sports and snowboarding, so I was just like, all right, this is what it is. I'll make it back. It's an hour and a half. I got 5 minutes from my house, and the last thing I remember was looking at the kid in the shotgun seat, because he only had his permit. He couldn't drive home. And I was just like, bro, you need to put the AC on. And he was like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? You got the windows down, it's snowing outside, and the air conditioning's on, you're white as a ghost, and you're sweating. That's the last thing I remember vividly, him saying that. And I woke up from a coma in the intensive care unit weeks later. And the out-of-body experience I had was fucking nuts, because like essentially it was like, here's me sitting on a log looking into a fire. Here's a bush like 10 yards away with also me behind the bush looking at the kid looking into the log, into the fire.
This was like an apparition or like a dream.
I guess. When they say your life flashes before your eyes, I learned that that's true. Yeah. And you'll see from the story how. And when they say only God can judge me now, I learned that that's true too. But it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about a Catholic God. I'm talking about whatever you grew up believing in, that supreme being lies within you. Yeah, the universal spirits that be, they lie within you. And that's why, like, prayer, whatever your religion is, or self-talk, whatever the frequency is that you utilize that's positive, it means so much. Like, sometimes you're talking positively to yourself, and you get fucking goosebumps. The hairs on your body stand up. Like, that is that supreme being in you resonating to the frequency of you speaking positively to yourself. I don't care if it's Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Krishna. It doesn't fucking matter. If you believe in it, it lies within you. And now here I am looking into this fire, right? And there's me behind this bush looking at this kid. And then there's also an animated version of me as like a teddy bear in the sky. It's like weird. I could feel all three consciousnesses of my being. And this kid is looking into the fire, and all the white flames are playing, but they're small. And all the white flames are just videos of really nice things that I did for people. And I'm like feeling the joy that I caused each person in each flame, separately but collectively. But at the same time, the kid behind the bush looking at this kid can feel like pain and anguish and just like despair. Picture your worst anxiety attack ever, if you've ever had one, and multiply it by 1,000. That's what the internal feeling of the kid behind the bush was. And I'm screaming to the other version of me looking at the good, nice things, run, run, run. And he could hear it, but he couldn't move. He was paralyzed. White flames dissipated, and they turned into black flames. All the bad things I had ever done, all the drug dealers I have ever robbed, all the drugs I sold to each person, I could vividly see each hand-to-hand transaction, each time I collected money, each time I kicked the door in, each time I made someone cry. I could see the pain I caused my mother. I could see the pain I caused my father, all the efforts they put together being unfolded before my eyes. I could see in these flames. And this kid is screaming, "Run!" And I guess the teddy bear version of me, the only way I could look at it in hindsight is what I believe to be my demons exploded out of the chest of the teddy bear.
Wow.
And they hit each black flame and grew to these colossal sized skyscrapers. And they're salivating over this little kid version of me just looking at this fire. And like, I'm screaming from behind the bush, "Run, you're gonna die!" And the kid can feel all the pain. The only way I interpret it is like that's what my hell would have been, an eternity of a panic attack.
Well, it sounds like the fire was like your judgment.
Exactly.
Like that it was you looking at you being judged.
I was the judge of my own life as it was flashing before my eyes, which is why when they say only God can judge me now, that supreme being lies within you. You know morally what you did right or wrong.
Right.
And
I agree.
Based off of the life that flashed before your eyes, it doesn't have to happen in a fire. It could happen however your brain or the dimethyltryptamine that's released in your brain, because who knows if that's a real out-of-body experience. It could just be the chemical released in your brain. It's been proven that your brain still functions 7 minutes after you die. So that being said, whatever it was, it fucking changed me, because what I believed to be Jesus popped out of that teddy bear version of me. His chest just goes, no, everything turned white, and I woke up in the intensive care unit. For all I fucking know right now, this is what's fucked up. Like, don't take mushrooms, but if you ever take mushrooms, you sit there. Sometimes you're like, I don't even know if this is reality, but like, are we all dead? You know, like, I don't even know if like my family could be living in a different realm, in a different dimension in time, mourning my death, but here I am living my best fucking life in my consciousness in this realm, in this dimension. Because there's an infinite number of things happening in an infinite number of realms and dimensions at any point given time.
Could be.
Which goes to the Mandela effect and more philosophical shit for a different episode.
Could be.
But it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's a crazy experience that you had. And, you told that in depth on the podcast before, too. And it's interesting how exact, the story matches. I remember when you told it to me before. And, like,
it's so vivid.
Yeah. And like, I've only had dreams that were similarly vivid to, like, an experience like that. And obviously, like, dreams are extremely different from that situation that you went through. But it's so interesting, like that I think is proof that there's absolutely something else going on than we are exposed to with just like our day-to-day consciousness. Yeah, without a doubt.
And the thing is, people fight wars over religion, at least going back in history. I don't know so much about now. Maybe it's still, to me now, the war is good versus evil.
People definitely still do.
But if it goes
not here on American soil, but overseas, especially in the Middle East, they do.
That's a fact. Now, when I woke up, my mom was on my bedside. My very first words were, "Mom, I don't know why people fight war over religion. It's all real." She had no idea what the fuck I was talking about. But to me, based off of that experience I had, it's not about Catholicism, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism. It's all real. If you put them all together, that's what life is supposed to be. Everybody has some type of lesson to teach. Essentially, it all comes down to the same thing, too. If you study the Quran, if you study Dharma and Karma, if you study Catholicism, Christianity, Protestants, like it all comes down to the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's really just a moral code. Because that supreme being lies within you. Your life does flash before your eyes, whether it's reincarnation, that's your belief system that's going to interpret your afterlife or what. It doesn't matter. It's real. It's fucking real. I don't give a shit if you believe you're going to turn into a fucking tree. If that's what your belief system is from the moment you were taught as a child till now, and it's never evolved and you haven't changed it, and you strictly believe it, I'm a firm believer based off my own experience that that's going to happen to you.
Do you think that, and this is kind of getting into like the just like...
It's subjective.
Let's say make-believe.
Yeah, it's subjective.
But that'll make sense once I say the statement. Like, does that just mean that like none of this is actually real? Because and I agree with you. Like, I agree that if to the core of your being you believe that you're going to be reincarnated as a different being based on the right decisions or the wrong decisions that you made during this lifetime as this being, and that reincarnation is a direct reflection of like your good or bad decisions, and that's what you believe to the core from the day you were born, versus like other people who believe in heaven and hell, and that's a whole different belief system. But like, I agree that those who imprint that on their brain and on the universe like will have that experience post-mortem.
Sorry.
Okay. We'll have that experience post-mortem like that. And to be honest, like none of us really know.
No one will.
It's impossible to know. But if that is the case, let's just say it is, like, isn't that just proof that like all this that's going on right now is relatively make believe? And in the definition of you make what you want to believe, you believe what you want to make.
Mm-hmm. Your thoughts become reality.
Like,
I would love to say it's proof, but again, it's almost impossible to induce a true scientific method.
It will be impossible.
Yeah,
it will be impossible.
It's practically all subjective based off people's firsthand experience. It's all he said, she said. And then everybody has different belief systems. So there's so many different variable factors that go into it that I can strictly only speak off my own experience. But I believe it's all real. Now, my girlfriend raised a good point that could completely discredit what I believe in. Say someone is a sociopathic serial killer, but they were raised Catholic, between heaven and hell.
Okay.
Sociopathy, they have no emotions. They don't really feel. They don't know what they're moral. They might know morally what they're doing is wrong, but if they don't believe it's wrong, then would they still then go to heaven on a Catholic-based belief system if they murder hundreds of people in their lifetime in this realm?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
So I said to her, I said, you got me beat. I didn't have an answer for it at the time. Thinking back in hindsight, I think even with sociopathy, you know morally what you're doing is wrong. So potentially you
I don't think so.
But again, we don't know.
I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a psychopath, so I absolutely don't know. But from what I've like seen on documentaries, that, you know, who says if they're a good source of information or not, it seems like people that have those impulses do truly believe that nothing's wrong with that. I mean, every circumstance is different.
But then if that is the case, then to further extend off of that.
But you're right. Like, that kind of does put a hole in that entire statement that I said before.
Does it though, or were they created for that specific purpose, and that they're still meant to go off their belief system to the end, because that's what creates diversification?
I mean, that's a pretty rough statement there.
It is.
You know.
Again, this is after work talk between me and my chick sometimes, and we get pretty deep, and I'm sitting there based off of the Rogan podcast.
That's pretty rough. I mean, like, if you want to go along with just like us not knowing what's going on, like, it is possible that you know, can't really know what's meant to be. I think it's super morbid and unfortunate, and hopefully not correct, that specific person who, you know, did horrible acts to people, you know, throughout their lifetime.
Properly.
You know, it almost doesn't seem like there's a reality out there where that is supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. I guess we'll never really know. I mean, in this reality, it seems like it's not supposed to happen.
I feel you on that. A lot of people aren't comfortable without having closure, and you just have to learn to be really cool with not having closure on everything, because you can't control everything in life. Yeah,
this next statement is definitely not associated with the serial killer aspect of life. But I, in my own life, take a lot of like joy and comfort, or like de-stress. I don't know if there's a better word for that, but like de-stress in understanding that I'm not going to know the answer to a lot of things, and that a lot of things are just left up to wonder, and that not knowing something is usually more fun.
It's the beauty of
than knowing the answer.
Let's
go. All right, where was that?
You were talking about the fun in the unknown.
The fun in the unknowing, absolutely, because that's like the disease that I feel like a lot of human brains have, is like, we have to know an answer, we have to Google it, we have access to Google it.
Everything you could ever know is a clue.
But I'll ask somebody that I trust. I'd rather ask somebody or not know the answer than to look it up and not know if the answer that I'm looking up is true.
True or false.
Because there's so much misinformation online, and I just, you know, maybe it's the product of like other countries infecting our information system, or just our information system being infected as it is by people that are greedy and wanting just attention instead of putting out facts. I don't know, but regardless,
people use Wikipedia, and that can be updated by the public.
Also, and yeah, like, regardless, like, something has disproven or something has given me distrust of like the internet. Yeah. So I'd rather find somebody that I trust and ask them the question, and then understand that the answer they give me may or may not be true, but still they have more information than I do.
And I love that.
Yeah, I also completely forgot the tangent why I brought that whole thing up.
The fun in the unknown.
The fun in the unknown, exactly.
Understand that they can live without having closure.
Sometimes it's cool not to know. Like, the whole thing, like, I love space. I love understanding and seeing photos of space, but I also, you know, I think we're pretty close, but also pretty far away from having like a proper understanding of what the fuck is going on above us. But also like that idea of like the universe and it being unknowing and it being
we as the public or we as a human race?
Human
Think
race.
The CIA fucking knows.
Human
and
race.
Russian
I'm sure
intelligence
people
knows?
have a pretty good grasp on what's going on. But what is immediately like common knowledge is still pretty sparse.
Restricted for sure.
But I like the mystery of just like, you know, there's some things that we just don't know and we can like pretend. I think pretend and like make believe is super fun and just, of course, not to be taken seriously. Like I'm not going to give somebody a factual information, like I know what's going on, but you know, wondering and curiosity and, you know, proposing certain things and having theories on things is kind of just good conversation. And, you know,
Amen. It's crazy because you think like people back like in our age now were like, oh my God, dinosaurs, they used to exist. They were huge. They were these massive things. I saw a video today of a blue whale opening its mouth to absorb, I think it's called krill that they eat.
it's a dinosaur.
Right? But that thing is massive. It lives among us.
It's a
People
dinosaur.
people think this is just prehistoric stuff. Like that thing lives among us in these times.
There used to be way bigger things.
Of course, but they're still here.
Birds are dinosaurs.
There you go.
If birds were as big as we are, they would fucking destroy us. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Birds are reptiles with wings.
Have you ever been attacked by a goose before? Because they will fucking destroy us already.
I haven't. I avoid geese.
They're mean little fuckers, bro.
I know they are.
Those
I
little
avoid
bastards.
them. They hiss.
Don't make a meme out of that. But for real. Oh no, I love the unknown too. A lot of people, they cannot survive in the unknown. And that's really what the point of this was. Like you and I thrive in it.
Thrive.
And people who thrive in it tend to be the ones who enjoy the journey, who are able to figure out consciously how to be happy and then build off of that in order to reach the goal of happiness and constant happiness. That's not to say that you don't have sad days or stressful days. Like this isn't toxic positivity, but happiness far outweighs sadness when you're able to achieve joy in the unknown.
Absolutely.
In my opinion. Like it's all subjective. I don't know.
What else do you dream about?
Do I dream about?
Yeah. Whether it be career-wise or just like philosophically.
I dream about eating dinner with my grandparents that have passed away a lot, like all the time.
It's very wholesome.
All the time. I also have like, on the contrary of that, I've had the same recurring dream for like 30 years. It's really weird. I've never been able to interpret it. It's kind of negative. But I start at the end of my block as a kid, and I'm running through backyards. There's these figures chasing me. I don't know who they are, what they are. And I'm running, jumping fences, and I get to my back door, and I'm watching my family eat. My dad sits at the head of the table. My sister sits to his left. My chair is empty. My brother sits at this end of the table. My mom sits right here with an empty chair next to her. And every time in this dream, I'm at the back door is locked, and I'm banging on the door. And like it's like they can't even hear me. They're just eating. It's like they don't even know I exist. And then the people get me and I wake up. That's like literal dreams. If you're talking about like aspirational dreams, my apologies. Let's dive into some.
It was an
positive
open-ended
shit.
question.
Yeah,
It was an
okay.
open-ended question.
But like outside of that, I used to dream of being famous. I went down the realm of trying to be an actor, trying to be a voiceover specialist, trying to be a model. I did that shit for like 7 years religiously while trying to run businesses and work. And it's really hard because even though I was mentally obsessed with it, my execution wasn't obsessed with it because I had to balance it with everything else I was doing. I got a couple gigs. They paid pretty well. I was like, this is amazing. But it was something where like as much as I dreamed about it, I was never completely obsessed with it. Whereas if I was, and I had the nurture from people around me instead of letting them get me down based off of that goal, I could have been somebody in that aspect. But then all of a sudden, recently, I kind of killed that whole dream on purpose because I noticed that like in order to get ahead in Hollywood, you got to fucking do degenerate shit, man. Yeah, like I don't want I wrote my eulogy. And to be a famous person in the vision that I had for myself did not align with who I wanted people to speak about me after I was dead. Look, first of all, I'm going to outlive all y'all motherfuckers, so nobody's coming to my funeral. That being said, my vision was that people would say nice things about me at my funeral because y'all knew me as a great person. So
Nobody's going to say anything about you if we're not there.
That's the point.
How are you going to live longer than us?
I don't know. Running and smoking weed. No, I'm just kidding.
Positivity.
All toxic positivity. I'm going to manifest
I'm
that
not going to
shit.
die.
$120 in technology. No, I'm just kidding. But honestly, if I could get another lifetime out of what I've lived, if I could hit 64, awesome. If I died tomorrow, I'm completely and look, knock on wood, like whatever. I'm completely never mind.
There you go.
Anywho,
I heard that.
I am completely content with the life that I have lived. Like, if God forbid something happened to me tomorrow, don't you fucking dare cry at my funeral. Y'all motherfuckers better bury me with a pound of weed and a fucking snowboard.
Yes, sir.
Because damn straight, my life has been amazing. I've met incredible people along the way. I've done incredible things. I've traveled the world. I feel cultured. Maybe not the classiest, but I got manners. I say please and thank you. I hold the door open just like you do. And I grew from being a child to an adolescent to a lost man, to a man who found himself, to lost himself again, to found himself again. And now, for the first time in my life, I know what peace feels like. Not just being happy. This is like true peace. I am self-sustainable. I have a roof over my head. I've got a family that I love, a family that loves me, and friends that I cherish. And I'd never known what that was up until about a year ago.
Beautiful.
And it's crazy. I'm about to fucking cry. Y'all motherfuckers better not make memes out of this too. Because for real, like, this is just like, this is emotional. Because, like, I'm 32. But it took, like I said, it took 10 plus years to rebuild a reputation. Now kids that I used to hang out with after watch, because like at the front it's toxic positivity. People are like, yo, he's just fucking lying. We know who you really are. But if you hold up the quote unquote genuine toxic positivity for over a decade, you can't fucking fake that shit for 10 years. It's who you are. Like, yeah, you can fake shit for 3 years. You're in a relationship with someone. They show their true colors like within a year. Like, you're like, I can't deal with this person anymore. We either need to break it off or just like cut ties entirely and leave and not talk to each other. But like, when you are trying to rebuild your reputation, but not for other people, for your fucking self, something changes in your brain. Like, you wake up one day, like, I can't fucking live like this. Like, I'm gonna die, or I'm going to be miserable forever. Like, I can't, what do I have to change? And I said it last time, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
True. And
for me, I always thought I was right. I always thought everything I was doing was great. It was like everybody around me was like, oh, this is amazing. Oh, you're so good looking. Oh, you're great at sports. Oh, you're good in school. Like, when you hear good compliments from the people that love you every day, like, you become narcissistic. It's just a habit that, like, you subconsciously form. You don't realize it until a bunch of people you love
stop saying
unintentionally cause you pain by telling you they can't love you anymore, or showing you they can't love you anymore, because you don't realize you don't even love yourself. All the shit that you've been doing is a fucking facade. Like you said before, you don't know who you are until that one day you wake up, you say, this isn't who I want to be. Who the fuck do I want to be? And it's still only going to be a dream until you start writing shit down. When you write shit down, it becomes real. I don't care if it's a business plan.
I agree.
I don't care if it's your eulogy. I don't care if it's a mantra. Whatever it is, if you write it down, it becomes real. I had this thought back in the day when I first started, like, trying to change who I was. And it was always like, oh, we're taught about Thomas Jefferson and Albert Einstein and all of these people. Now, again, this is subjective. This is not true. But in my head, I was like, for all we fucking know, they just found handwritten notebooks of these people that were students in a fucking classroom, and they're teaching us that they were geniuses of their time when they could have been taught from someone else. Because what I was doing was typing everything. All it takes is a fucking EMP for you to have everything you've ever typed completely wiped away and gone. So I made sure I hand wrote every single fucking thought I had down. And then I retyped it, because it just furthermore drills it in your brain. But if there's an EMP that goes out, at least you still got a backup copy handwritten somewhere. And in 2,000 years, if someone fucking finds a book in burnt rubbish of fucking some nuclear explosion of bullshit, you might be the genius of your time in 2,000 years being taught about in fucking school.
True.
So, like, as stupid as that sounds, like, far-fetched shit happened.
Chris's notebook and like, oh my God, this guy knew everything.
Meanwhile, I was just in 6th grade science class writing down what fucking Mr. Miodownik taught me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, it's just kind of crazy to ponder like that. Like, we know them to be geniuses, but were they? Fucking were they?
Sure. You're a genius.
Not me.
Be happy to find a notebook.
Listen, I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room when I walk in the rooms. Like, they always say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I disagree with that, because it's your responsibility at that point to recognize that, being the smartest person in the room, and then to pay your wisdom forward to the people.
For sure.
Should they choose to use it, that's up to them.
For sure.
But make sure, if the majority of your experiences, you're the smartest person in the room, you need to start fucking switching up the scene a little bit. Start hanging out with people that are smarter than you. Grow yourself.
Yeah. It's okay to be the smartest person in the room.
100%.
Like you said, it's not like an ego thing.
No.
It's also not necessary to recognize that that is the case.
You never recognize it.
You know?
But if you do understand there's certain situations you can add value to people who are receptive of you adding the value, then certainly inquire about it and then lay it out. Because a lot of people will think you're trying to outsmart them or one-up them or alpha male them by passing knowledge on. You got to understand your crowd 100% of the time. Like there's a lot of times, like you know me, I talk a lot. I'm sorry. Anywho, like when I meet new people, I feel the need. I'm compelled to tell people, hey, look, I talk more than any human being ever should. So if you feel uncomfortable, do not feel bad telling me to shut the fuck up. I get it. I'm self-aware. It's okay. But at the same time, like I have a friend who is a conspiracy theorist and he believes it fully, but he doesn't know his crowd. He's lost all of his friends because he tries to shove his belief systems down their throat. When they don't understand what he's saying, he freaks out on them and they don't want to be friends with him anymore. Know your crowd.
Right.
If you have people who like conspiracies, you can speak with them about conspiracies. If you have people who think they're smarter than you and are not receptive to the wisdom you have, keep your fucking mouth shut. It's really hard to do, especially for someone like me. Like I meet people,
listen,
and they're definitely smarter than me, but it's a conscious decision to listen. Like it's hard to keep my mouth shut. And that's basically a life choice you have to make. It's like I wanted to become a more humble person. I don't seem humble, but had you met me 10 years ago, you'd be like, holy shit, my guy, you've made not strides, you've made leaps in the humble.
Well, just from the way you talk about it, I recognize that you've made leaps and bounds. I mean, you're not out here robbing people. You turn your life around. Like, you're super supportive of your friend group. You're super supportive of your friend group. And, like, I noticed that from the day I met you. Like, you're very generous. You're very humble. You're very willing to give to those around you before you take for yourself.
I appreciate it. It comes from a place of pain. You know what I mean? Like, growing through that pain. Growing pains, we'll call it. Like, I don't ever want my friends to have to go through the pain that I had went through, not just mentally or physically, but like entrepreneurially as well. Like me having to do that at the time I kind of knew at the time, like, yo, you're ahead of your time. Nobody's going to invest in a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid who has no traction in business for a world-changing billion-dollar idea where you're looking for $500,000 in capital. But I also learned throughout that experience that nobody shared my shit on Facebook. Nobody liked my posts. Nobody commented on my feeds. Nobody helped me try to get my business relevant on social media. So then what I did was I went and created a bunch of fake emails, made fake social media accounts, built up my own following myself with relevance before the algorithms caught on to that shit that was all coming from one IP address and basically restricted the accounts. But I remember watching after I consciously realized that no one gave a shit out of the people that I done everything for. I was like, you got to do this on your own. I grew an account to 12,000 followers just by having 15 different accounts liking and resharing my own pages. And you would never know that I own the other accounts because I would just go and follow celebrities and comment on people's shit. And that would have, it was weird. The fake accounts that I made had more organic followings than my own personal account, which taught me a lot about myself. It's like, people don't fucking like you.
Interesting.
As much as you think people love you, no one fucking likes you. So you have to create your own like and fake it until you fucking make it. And while it took 10 plus years to get the reputation back, and people are gradually starting to reach back out to me like, hey, it's cool that you're doing this. Hey, I'm visiting Denver. Is it cool if we hang out? Like, these are people I haven't spoken to in 10 years. My initial reaction was like, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. You fucking left me out to dry.
Yeah, you can't think like that, though.
Exactly. My step back is, oh, well, that's the devil on your shoulders saying that. That's the hate. That's the hurt. That's the pain. But you're a type of person who has so much love to give. You need to live that way no matter how anybody treats you. I had a therapist one time, he used to tell me, he was like, you get so upset because you expect shit in return when you give shit to people. That was the drug dealer mentality in my soul at the time. It was, I gave you 2 pounds of weed. You didn't fucking pay me. I need to smash your teeth out with the back end of my pistol.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay. I met a kid one day outside of this therapy session. He said, don't ever lend anything to anybody unless you consider them family. And if you do that, don't ever expect it back.
Right.
It's like, otherwise don't lend it. Now, the therapist, to circle back, he said to me, he said, what you need to understand is that you need to learn that you like to give to people because it's selfish. It makes you feel good about you. Stop expecting people to treat you the way you treat them because you've already learned that people do not treat you the way you want to be treated. Okay? People treat you however they want to treat you, no matter how good you are to them. Which then turned into, for me, writing that eulogy, I was like, this is how I want to be remembered. I don't give a fuck if somebody treats me in negative fashion, because I'm going to open my arms with love. Even if my initial response is to kick their fucking teeth down their throat and show them that I'm a warrior.
Don't do that.
I won't. But that's the initial mindset. The initial mindset is like the ego. It's like, yo, chest up. Like, what are you going to do? And even though, like, you look at me like I'm scrawny, like, the mindset is different than the physicality of it.
For sure.
But then it takes a real person to take a step back. Like, no, that's not the right way to do that shit. There's a right way and a wrong way, and that you've proven and learned time and time again is a wrong way. Like, when you do things the right way, everything else falls into place. When it comes to the job, when it comes to the family, when it comes to friends, relationships, food, money, like, everything falls into place when you start doing shit properly. In your own eyes, in the eyes of the universal spirits and laws that be.
I agree. Once you kind of start not only doing things for yourself, but doing things for yourself that benefit others or don't really harm others.
How can you pay it forward to help others? That's what it is. And you're right. As long as it doesn't harm others,
it's beautiful.
It is.
It's a good mindset to have, and that's when things start working for you.
And you can. And the cool thing is, you keep learning and you keep growing. Like, you realize, like, at this point, like, okay, I'm 32. Talk a lot, I think I know a lot, but I know that I don't know a fucking thing about the world. You put me in a room with 50 people, and not just in a one-on-one with you and I in an interview, you'll see me not say a fucking word. Like, I will be completely silent, because I know right off the bat that, statistically speaking, I'm probably the dumbest person in the room. Like, based off of my
I don't know about that.
Based off my decision. Maybe
I don't know
not,
about that.
Maybe not when it comes to wisdom, but when it comes to actual book-smart knowledge, if I'm in a room with 50 people, I'm going to assume, based off of the type of scene that we're in, if it's a business setting, I'm going to assume I'm in the lower 10 percentile, because that's the smart thing to assume. Not the true thing to assume, but that's what enables you to consciously say, keep your fucking mouth shut and open up your goddamn ears, because you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that you can watch with your 2 eyes what people are fucking saying and internalize it. And then you can choose to implement what you want in your own life and what to pay forward from those people. But
absolutely.
I don't know, it's kind of crazy, because, like, every time you do get to a point where you think you know shit, you learn that the unknown is far greater than what you fucking know.
Very surprising.
It's crazy to me, man. And I always say to people, based off of what someone said to me, you never ride the highs too high and you never ride the lows too low. I mean, like, life is an absolute roller coaster. Right now, like I said, I've never experienced true peace and happiness like I have. At the same time, expectations are the root of all heartache, so I just let it rock, man. Like, life is life. You gotta roll with it. Like, if you're fucking doing great and shit hits the fan, embrace it.
And we're back to the audio.
Bing bong.
You know what? How about we wrap it up here, Chris?
Honestly, I think it's been a great conversation. I'm sorry I stole it.
Absolutely has. You're the guest. You're supposed to steal it. That's the whole point of the podcast, is for you to share your story.
I fucking love you, my guy.
Nobody wants to hear about me.
Yes, they do. It's the Mason J show. Yo, here's what we're going to do one day. Season 2.
Yeah.
You're going to call 2 or 3 of us in around this beautiful table, and we're going to interview you.
For sure.
The world needs to get to know Mason J.
More than happy to. Maybe it's season 2 finale.
Ooh. Not Mr. Schneider. Mr. Snyder.
That's right.
That's it, mate.
Well, thanks everybody if you made it this far. Appreciate you. Check me out on the next episode.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Much love, everyone. Have a good one.